Have you ever received something so unexpected, so impossible, that it stopped your entire world in one heartbeat? Because that's exactly what happened to me the morning a letter arrived. A letter from the one person I thought I'd never hear from again. For years. 4 long, unforgiving, bone-deep years since my son Liam walked out of my life and slammed the door so hard behind him that it felt like it fractured something inside me. And the thing about that kind of fracture, it never quite heals right. People say time heals everything, but they never talk about the wounds that refuse to close, the ones that sit under the skin like buried glass, hurting every time you breathe wrong. There are moments when a house is so quiet it feels like it's listening to your thoughts. Moments when you're washing dishes or folding laundry or walking past an old photo frame, and the silence hits you so hard it steals your breath. That was my life. A life built on pretending I had moved on. Pretending I didn't check my phone, hoping for a message. Pretending I didn't rehearse the words I'd say if he ever called. Pretending I didn't miss him every single day. My wife Adele knew. She saw the way my eyes drifted toward the front window whenever the mail truck passed. She noticed how I paused when the phone rang. She noticed everything, because she missed him too. Most days, she brought in the mail. Not because I was lazy, but because she knew what it did to me. Each empty mailbox was another reminder that Liam wasn't thinking of us. Or worse, didn't want to. But that morning, she was in the shower. And fate, cruel, quiet, dramatic fate, decided that was the moment to strike. I opened the mailbox out of routine, out of habit, not expecting anything but bills, flyers, and disappointment. But then, I froze, because sitting right on top was an envelope that nearly knocked the air out of me. White, clean, unbent, and written on the front, in a handwriting I knew better than my own. Liam Rivera, my father. My heart didn't just skip. It stumbled, tripped, collapsed, then roared back to life like it was trying to jump out of my chest. My hand shook. My vision blurred. My knees almost buckled beneath me. I whispered his name, barely a breath, barely a sound. Liam, son. The word son tasted like a memory I hadn't spoken in years. Through the kitchen window, Adele saw me. She must have recognized the shock on my face, because she rushed out so fast. She didn't even grab a towel. Ralph, what's wrong? You're pale. I held the envelope out to her, like it was a newborn baby. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, it's him. That was the moment the world shrank. Just the two of us holding this fragile little rectangle of paper like it carried our last hope. Because maybe, just maybe, our son was reaching out. Maybe he was ready to talk. Maybe he was alive. Safe. Thinking of us. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. Or maybe it was something else entirely. I slid my finger under the flap, breathing like someone preparing to step into a dream. But suddenly, Adele grabbed my wrist. Her voice was sharp, almost frightened. Wait, what is it? She pointed to the upper left corner. And there, printed clearly in small black letters, was the return address. It wasn't his Portland apartment. It wasn't his old workplace. It wasn't even anywhere he had ever lived. It was a halfway house in Tacoma, 2 states away. A place for people battling addiction, people escaping danger, people rebuilding their lives after a fall so hard it nearly killed them. A place Liam had never mentioned. A place he had no reason to be. A cold knot twisted deep in my stomach. The kind that tells you something is very, very wrong. And yet, the handwriting looked exactly like his. His loops. His slants. The way he always wrote the letter are a little taller than the others. Everything matched. Adele whispered. Why would he be in a halfway house? Ralph, what happened? Why wouldn't he call? I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mind kept flipping between hope and dread, like someone switching lights on and off in a dark room. Hope. He's alive. He's reaching out. He needs me. Dread. He's in trouble. Something terrible happened. He's hiding something. Someone forced him. Someone hurt him. Someone impersonated him. I looked down at the letter again, and a strange thought crossed my mind. What if this isn't from him at all? That question struck me like lightning, sudden, loud, terrifying. Because as a father, you know your child's handwriting. but as a desperate father? You see what you want to see. Adele must have sensed the same fear, because she whispered, "Ralph, open it. Please. We need to know." I took a deep breath. The envelope felt heavier than it should have, like it carried a secret that had been waiting for years to reach us. The world slowed. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. And just as I lifted the flap for the second time, I felt something else. Something unsettling. A prickling at the base of my neck. Like the universe was warning me. This letter is going to change everything. But not in the way you hope. As the paper slid out, thin, crinkling, trembling between my fingers, I asked myself the question every parent fears. If this isn't for my son, then who would pretend to be him? And more importantly, why? And that was the moment everything began to unravel. Because the truth behind that letter was darker, colder, and more twisted than anything I could have imagined. And once it started, there was no stopping the storm that was about to hit our family. What would you do if someone used your child's voice, your child's pain, to manipulate you? Because the moment I opened that letter, I felt it. A truth so sharp it cut through the hope I desperately wanted to believe in. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of cheap white paper. The kind you buy in bulk when you don't care about quality. My hand shook as I unfolded it. And at first glance, the handwriting looked like Liam's. The tall loops, the quick strokes, the uneven spacing he always blamed on creative brain, not logical brain. But the words were ice. "Dad, I need your help. I'm sick. I don't have insurance. I need $12,000 by tomorrow, or I can't get treatment." $12,000. My breath caught. Not because of the amount, but because of the way it was written. "No, Dad, I'm scared. No, please, talk to me." No explanation of what illness he had. No details. No warmth. Just need. Urgency. Pressure. It didn't sound like my son. And then the last line. "I know we haven't spoken in years, but you're still my dad." I swallowed hard. That was the sentence designed to break me. The emotional bait meant to drag me under. Adele moved closer, her eyes scanning the letter with the caution of someone who knew bad news when she saw it. "Ralph, this doesn't sound like him." Her voice cracked, not because she doubted Liam, but because she recognized manipulation. And she was right. Liam was many things. Emotional, impulsive, sensitive. Yes, we fought. God knows we did. But even at his most angry, he had a softness in his words when he reached out. This letter felt like a stranger puppeteering his handwriting. But grief is a naive thing. It makes your heart outrun your brain. Because even though the letter screamed wrong, the longing inside me whispered, what if it's real? What if he needs you? What if this is your second chance? I read the letter again and again, looking for the little imperfections only a father would recognize. The little swirls in his letters, the sloppy R's he always drew, the way he doodled in the margins. Nothing. Clean. Practical. Empty. Maybe he was rushed, I muttered, trying to convince myself. Adele shook her head gently. Or maybe someone wants you to think that. But I wasn't ready to accept that yet. Not when the ache of missing my son was louder than common sense. "I'm calling the number." Adele touched my arm, her eyes heavy with worry. "Ralph, we should think this through." But I was already dialing. Because if my son was sick, if my son was scared, if my son needed me, I wasn't losing him twice. The phone rang once, twice. Then someone picked up. A young man's voice answered, flat, impatient, irritated. "Yeah." My throat tightened. Is Liam there?" There was a pause. Too long. Too practiced. "Nah." He stepped out. No name. No detail. No concern. Just a vague answer that sat wrong in my stomach. "Is he okay? Is he?" The guy cut me off. "Look, old man, he needs the money. Just send it." Old man. Liam never called me that. Even at his cruelest, he never said it with that mocking tone. Something icy crawled up my spine. Adele whispered, "Ralph, hang up." But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I asked the one question every real friend or roommate would know instinctively. "What's his middle name?" A heartbeat of silence. Then, click. The line went dead. Just like that. No excuses. No lies. No panic. Just total silence. And in that silence, the truth screamed louder than any words. My son hadn't written that letter. My son hadn't made that call. My son wasn't the one asking for $12,000. Someone was using his name. Someone who knew the exact spot in my heart where the knife would fit. Someone who knew our estrangement. Someone close to him. A neighbor wouldn't know that we hadn't spoken in 4 years. A scammer overseas wouldn't know his handwriting. A stranger wouldn't know how to craft a message that opened old scars precisely. This was personal. Adele covered her mouth, tears forming. Oh God, Ralph, someone is pretending to be him. But my mind wasn't on fear anymore. It was on anger. White-hot, bitter anger rising from a place I hadn't touched since Liam walked out. Someone had taken my son's name, my pain, my regret, and twisted it into a weapon. Who would do that? My mind raced through faces. Old co-workers? Distant cousins? People who used to know us? No, it had to be someone with access to Liam's handwriting. Someone who knew the intimate things families try to hide. And then, a face flashed through my mind. Jonas, Liam's roommate. The same man who answered my son's phone once with a tone dripping with disdain. The man who always treated me like I was some old-fashioned tyrant ruining Liam's life. The man who once cornered me in their apartment kitchen to tell me I was the reason Liam needed to escape. He hated me. He hated the way I pushed Liam to be better. He hated that I disapproved of their lifestyle. He hated that Liam still cared what I thought. But hate can protect, and it can destroy. A chill ran down my spine. Someone close to him. Adele whispered, reading my expression. You're thinking what I'm thinking. I nodded slowly. But here's the part that stopped my breath. The return address wasn't fake. It was real. The halfway house existed. And Liam's name was indeed on their resident list. So yes, something was wrong. But the danger wasn't what the letter claimed. And here's the twist. A secret the audience learns before I do. Liam really was there. He was living in that halfway house. He was struggling. He was lost. But he wasn't the one reaching out. Someone else was. Someone using his pain for profit. Someone with a motive. Someone with access to his journal, his handwriting, his fears. And as the truth began to take shape in my mind, a cold realization settled into my bones. This wasn't a plea for help. This was a trap. A trap meant specifically for me. And I was about to step right into it. What if the person hurting your child is someone they trust? And what if the danger isn't who you fear, but who your child calls friend? Because the night I realized who might be behind that letter, I felt something colder than fear. I felt certainty. A storm began that evening, the kind that rattles windows and whispers warnings against the glass. Wind crawled under the roof tiles. Lightning flashed behind thin clouds like an angry pulse in the sky. But the loudest storm was inside me. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think straight. All I heard was that voice on the phone, sharp, dismissive, irritated. All I saw was the letter, fake kindness, real manipulation. And somewhere in the middle of that chaos, something clicked. It wasn't a memory. It was a tone dripping with resentment, a tone I had heard before. My mind dragged up a face I had tried hard to forget. Jonas, my son's roommate, the man who never liked me, the man who called me old school, overbearing, controlling, the man who said Liam needed freedom, not pressure from family, the man who once cornered me in their apartment kitchen and said, "You're the reason he's unhappy, not the world, not the job, you." He had said it casually, like someone commenting on the weather. But there was venom hidden in every syllable. He always stood too close, always smiled too wide, always knew a little too much about the cracks in our family. And now, the voice on the phone matched his almost perfectly. A cold realization crawled down my spine. What if Jonas didn't just hate me? What if he wanted to punish me? Not by hurting me directly, but by using the one person he knew was my weakness. Liam. And here's where the moral line blurred. Because suddenly I was asking myself a question no parent wants to ask. Had I failed my son so badly that someone else felt justified stepping into the role I abandoned. The guilt shared a room with anger, and both kept me awake through the storm. Adele slept restlessly beside me, turning in her dreams, whispering Liam's name like a prayer. I stared at the ceiling, listening to thunder roll across the sky like the world itself was bracing for what was coming. By sunrise, one thought had grown so large it swallowed every other. I needed to see my son, at any cost. Now, no more guessing, no more wondering, no more letting fear drive the story. The moment Adele stepped into the kitchen, still groggy, still wearing worry on her face, I spoke. "I'm going to Tacoma." Her eyes widened instantly, fear, exhaustion, and love all crashing together. "Ralph, please, at least think about this." "I have. All night." She shook her head and stepped closer, her voice trembling. "You don't know what's waiting for you there. What if he slams the door in your face again? What if he believes whatever Jonas told him? What if—" "I don't care about that." My voice cracked, not from anger, from 4 years of silence finally breaking open. "I need to see my son," I repeated, "even if he doesn't want to see me." Adele's eyes softened, but sadness weighed down her shoulders. "Even if he hates you," she whispered. "Yes, even if it destroys you." "Yes." She touched my face gently, like she was memorizing it, like she feared something bad would happen on that trip. "I'm scared, Ralph." "I know," I said softly. "So am I." But fear wasn't going to stop me. Fear had already cost me 4 years. I wasn't losing another minute. The drive to Tacoma felt like a battlefield inside my head. Every mile dragged memories I didn't want to face. Memories of Liam at 5 years old, climbing on my shoulders at the park. Liam at 10, holding a science fair ribbon and smiling like the sun lived inside him. Liam at 17, slamming doors and shouting that I never listened. Liam at 23, packing his bags and walking out because he thought I was trying to control him. But the hardest memory? The last time I saw him before the silence. He was standing in the apartment doorway, Jonas behind him with a satisfied smirk. Liam said, "I don't need you anymore." But the look in his eyes told a different story. A story Jonas used against both of us. That memory wrapped itself around my chest like barbed wire as I drove. Was Liam in that halfway house because life broke him? Or because someone else pushed him off the edge? I didn't know, but I was going to find out. As I crossed the state line, a thought hit me so hard I almost pulled the car over. What if Jonas was doing this for Liam? Twisted logic, but logic nonetheless. In Jonas's warped worldview, I was the villain. I was the reason Liam fell apart. I was the root of his mental health problems. So maybe, in some deranged way, Jonas thought he was saving Liam, by isolating him, by manipulating him, by keeping him away from me, and by punishing me financially. A broken kind of justice, a villain with a point, and that terrified me more than any scam, because a scammer you can fight with logic, but a man who believes he's the hero, he's dangerous. He doesn't stop until everyone agrees with his version of the truth. And Jonas's truth was simple. Liam needed him, not us, never us. Hours later, the Tacoma city limits appeared. Clouds hung low, mountains shadowed the horizon, and just beyond the downtown area lay the halfway house whose return address had shattered my world. As I turned onto the quiet street, lined with gray houses and overgrown gardens, my heart began pounding harder than the storm the night before. A question echoed inside me, loud, sharp, impossible to ignore. What'll I find behind that door? My son, or the man who stole him from me? The building finally came into view. A tired structure, peeling paint, a sagging mailbox, rust stains running down the side like tears. Not a place for someone pretending to be fine. A place for someone fighting demons. Maybe his demons, maybe someone else's. I parked across the street. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, not exactly, but from the weight of knowing that the next few minutes could rewrite my entire life. I stepped out of the car. Cold air hit my face like a warning. A neighbor watched me from a porch. A dog barked somewhere behind a fence. A gust of wind rattled the loose gutter. Every sound felt amplified, like the world was holding its breath with me. I stared at the front door. And then, the biggest hook of all, what I didn't know was that someone inside that house had been waiting for me. Not my son. Not an enemy. Someone else entirely. Someone who would change everything. What hurts more? The truth you prayed to hear, or the truth you were never supposed to discover? Because the moment I stepped into that halfway house, I realized I didn't come looking for my son. I came looking for the pieces of him someone else had broken. The halfway house didn't look dangerous. It looked tired, like the building itself had lived too many lives and survived too many stories. Faded gray walls, peeling paint, a drooping flagpole tapping lightly in the wind. The smell of bleach and stale carpet drifted through the cracked doorway. Inside, everything echoed. Footsteps, distant voices, even my heartbeat. It felt like the kind of place where people come to restart, or to fall apart quietly. I approached the front desk where a woman in her 50s sat, flipping through intake forms. Her glasses dangled from a chain around her neck, and she wore an expression that made it clear she'd seen every version of rock bottom. "I'm looking for my son," I said, my voice thinner than I intended. "His name is Liam Rivera." She looked up. Something in her eyes softened. Empathy, maybe, or pity. "You must be his father." My heart clenched. "So he is here?" She nodded slowly. "He's been with us for about 3 months. He's made progress, but he's fragile." Fragile. That word hit like a punch. I pulled out the letter from my jacket pocket and handed it to her. "He sent me this. I need to know if he's okay." She scanned the page, her brow furrowing almost immediately. This isn't Liam's handwriting. Every bone in my body went cold. What? I've seen him fill out medical forms, journaling, group exercises. She tapped the paper. "He doesn't write like this. Not even close." My stomach fell so hard it felt like it hit the floor. "Where is he?" I whispered. She hesitated, just long enough to prepare me for the blow. "He's in the courtyard, but you should prepare yourself." Nothing prepares a parent to see their child broken. Nothing. I stepped out into the courtyard, a narrow stretch of grass, a rusted bench under a struggling tree, a couple of residents smoking quietly on the far side. And then I saw him, my son, sitting alone, hunched over, thinner, paler, his shoulders pressed inward like the world had been weighing on them for years. His hair was longer than I remembered. His jaw was sharper. His hands trembled slightly in his lap. He didn't look sick. He looked worn out, exhausted, drained, like life had sanded him down until only the outline of him remained. And when he lifted his face, God, those weren't the eyes of the boy I raised. Those were the eyes of someone who'd been drowning with no one to throw him a rope. He froze when he saw me. "Dad," his voice cracked like dry wood. "What are you? How did you even know?" I held up the letter. His face drained of blood, so fast I thought he would faint. He sank back onto the bench like his legs could no longer hold him. "Oh no," he whispered. "Jonas, he did it. He did it, didn't he?" His breath hitched. Then he folded forward, burying his face in his hands, like he was ashamed, guilty, terrified, all at once. I sat beside him, careful not to startle him. "Liam, talk to me. Please." And then it poured out. Everything. Jonas hadn't just followed him to the halfway house. He embedded himself there, right into Liam's recovery, under the disguise of being a supportive friend. But what he really wanted was control. Control wrapped in comfort. Control disguised as loyalty. Control masked as love. Liam's voice shook as he explained. "He stole my journal, Dad. The one where I practiced handwriting for art school. He used it to copy my writing." I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. "He intercepted the letters I tried to send you," Liam continued. "He told me you didn't care, that you said you were done with me." My heart shattered. "I wrote you 12 letters," Liam whispered. "Every time I tried to mail one, Jonas told me it would just hurt you, that you didn't want me back, that calling you would make things worse." My throat tightened. "You believe them?" I asked gently. He nodded, tears forming. I didn't want to, but he always sounded so sure, and I was so messed up. I thought you hated me. I took a deep breath, then another, because hearing your own child tell you they believed you'd abandoned them, that's the kind of pain that cuts from the inside. Son, I said quietly, I never stopped loving you. Not for a single second. He broke then. Not from anger, not from shame, but from relief. Pure, unfiltered, soul-deep relief. He leaned into me, trembling like a child again, and for a moment, everything, the years of silence, the fights, the heartbreak, all of it dissolved. But peace didn't last long, because the courtyard door opened, and Jonas stepped out. He spotted me instantly, and the smug expression he always wore drained from his face like ink in water. You weren't supposed to be here, he said, not surprised, not worried for Liam. He was upset because I had shown up uninvited to his little kingdom. Liam stood, wiping his cheeks. Jonas, you lied to me. Jonas didn't answer him. He looked directly at me. You ruined him, he said. You pushed him until he broke. Someone had to protect him from you. My hand started shaking, not from fear, but from a rage so old and so deep it felt like it lived in my bones. You used my son, I said quietly. You isolated him, manipulated him, stole his letters, pretended to be him. He didn't deny it. He didn't even look ashamed. Instead, he said something chilling. I just wanted him to stop hurting. You were the problem. A villain with a point. A twisted one, but a point nonetheless. Because here's the truth. Broken people don't just hurt themselves. They cling to anyone who makes them feel needed. And broken fixers cling to the broken even harder. Jonas didn't want to destroy Liam. He wanted to own him. Control disguised as compassion. Manipulation wearing the mask of protection. And Liam, he never saw it until now. But now he saw everything. And the moment that truth hit him, he stepped away from Jonas. Physically, emotionally, fully. Something Jonas wasn't expecting. For the first time, Jonas looked afraid. Not of me. Of losing the person he had wrapped his identity around. Liam's voice shook as he spoke. You don't get to control my life anymore. A simple sentence, but it shifted the entire world. And that's when things escalated in a way none of us were prepared for. Because Jonas wasn't done. Not by a long shot. And the next thing he did, that was the moment everything went from painful to dangerous. The sun had barely risen, but the air around Claire's apartment was thick with a quiet tension, the kind that presses against your chest and makes every breath feel like a countdown. Weeks of careful planning, sleepless nights, and silent investigations had led to this moment. And yet, the dread that gripped her wasn't just about facing Jonas. It was about who she was becoming in the process. Justice or revenge? She wasn't sure anymore. The line had blurred somewhere between the whispered threats, the hidden cameras, and the carefully orchestrated exposures. But she knew one thing. It had to end tonight. Claire stepped into the street, the early morning mist curling around her like ghostly fingers. Each step toward the small, nondescript building where Jonas had been hiding felt heavier than the last. Her phone buzzed, Liam's name flashing across the screen. Her heart thumped, a mixture of fear and longing. She answered, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. I'm close, she said. Are you sure you're ready? There was a pause, a tremor in his voice. I have to be. I can't wait anymore. Claire's throat tightened. Every warning she had ever ignored, every ounce of doubt she had pushed aside, came rushing back in that moment. She had wanted justice. She had wanted him to pay for the lies, for the betrayal, for the terror he had inflicted. But now, standing on the edge of confrontation, she realized that she also wanted closure, for herself, for Liam, and for the life that had been stolen from them. The door to Jonas's apartment was unlocked, the kind of careless mistake only a man drunk on his own arrogance could make. Claire stepped inside, her eyes scanning the dim, cluttered space. There he was, Jonas, leaning against the kitchen counter, a smug smile plastered across his face. But it was different now. The arrogance had faded, replaced by a flicker of something else, fear. You shouldn't have come here. Jonas said, trying to sound commanding, but his voice cracked. Claire didn't answer immediately. She let the silence stretch, letting him feel the weight of every sleepless night, every stolen moment, every piece of their lives he had attempted to destroy. Her eyes didn't leave his face, searching for the man behind the mask, the part that might still care, or the part that deserved nothing but the truth. I came for answers, Claire finally said. Not threats, not revenge. Answers. Jonas laughed, a hollow sound that bounced off the walls. Answers? You think you can handle the truth? Claire stepped closer, the anger coiling around her like a live wire. I don't need to handle it. I just need to hear it. And then it ends. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then Jonas spoke slowly, as if every word cost him more than the last. He admitted everything. The lies, the manipulation, the countless times he had tried to isolate Liam from her, the schemes to make her appear unstable, the threats she hadn't even known about. Each revelation was a punch to the gut, but instead of breaking her, it fortified her. She had lived through the aftermath. She had survived. And now, she was finally hearing the truth laid bare. I thought I could control everything, Jonas confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. I thought I could take everything from you and walk away untouched. But I was wrong. Claire's hands were trembling, not from fear, but from the intensity of the moment. She had imagined this confrontation countless times, every possible variation, but none had prepared her for the raw, unvarnished exposure of the man who had haunted their lives. You're not untouchable, she said, and you never will be again. It wasn't about revenge. Claire wasn't going to destroy him, not physically, not legally. He had already trapped himself in the consequences of his own actions. The police had evidence now. The restraining orders were in place, and every lie, every deceit, was documented and undeniable. Justice wasn't hers to mete out with fists or fury. It was there in the truth, the exposure, and the safety she had fought to reclaim for Liam and herself. Jonas's shoulders slumped, the weight of inevitability pressing down on him. For the first time, he looked small, diminished, not just because of the law, but because of the moral reckoning he could not escape. Claire saw it, the fear, the shame, the faint glimmer of remorse. It wasn't relief. It wasn't satisfaction. It was the mirror of what she had endured, reflected back at him. And then the moment shifted. Liam appeared behind her, quiet but resolute. His eyes were wide, unsure, but he was there. Claire felt a swell of emotion, a combination of relief, pride, and profound love. She took a step back, letting him move forward, letting him witness the truth for himself. Dad, Liam said, his voice small, almost disbelieving. Is it true? Jonas looked at him, caught off guard, his lies, his manipulations, all of them crumbling in a single glance. Yes, he muttered. It's all true. The silence that followed was thick, heavy with years of unspoken pain. And then Liam did something Claire hadn't expected. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He didn't lash out. He simply turned to her, eyes brimming with tears. Mom, we're okay now, aren't we? Claire swallowed hard, every muscle in her body tense with the enormity of the moment. Yes, Liam, we're okay now. It wasn't just the resolution of the threat. It wasn't the legal closure or the restraining orders or even the police intervention. It was the reclamation of their lives, the slow, painstaking reconstruction of the trust, safety, and love that had been shattered. And in that quiet moment, amidst the remnants of fear and dread, Claire understood the true power of justice. It wasn't about punishing the guilty. It was about restoring the innocent. They left the apartment together, stepping into the pale morning light. The city around them was waking, oblivious to the battles fought behind closed doors, to the triumphs and scars etched into human hearts. Claire felt the weight of the past lift slightly, replaced by something fragile but infinitely precious. Hope. Weeks passed, but the echoes of that day never truly left them. Liam slowly returned to the rhythm of everyday life, tentatively reconnecting with friends, rediscovering laughter, and letting go of the fear that had defined him for too long. Claire rebuilt her routines, her work, her life, always vigilant, but never again trapped in the paralyzing grip of Jonas's manipulations. And yet, even in their restored peace, there were moments of reflection, moments of moral reckoning. Claire thought about the choices she had made, the blurred line between justice and revenge, the intoxicating pull of taking control of someone else's fate. She had walked that line carefully, measured her steps, and let the law and truth guide her. But she knew that not everyone would or could do the same. That knowledge lingered, a shadow over the brightened edges of her life, a reminder that vigilance and courage were never finished work. They were ongoing commitments. It was during one of these reflective evenings that Claire realized something profound. Life didn't just resume after trauma. It rebuilt itself in layers, layered with caution, resilience, and the subtle, almost imperceptible moments of kindness that reminded you that the world was capable of goodness, even after darkness. She remembered the small gestures, the unexpected allies, the neighbors who had offered support, and even the glimmers of compassion from strangers who had no obligation but acted anyway. That kindness was what had allowed her and Liam to stand strong in the aftermath. That kindness was what truly healed. And so life slowly unfolded. Claire enrolled in a new course she had always postponed, diving into her passion for design. Liam started a small mentorship program, helping younger kids navigate the challenges of school and social life, ensuring they had a safe space that he and his mother had fought so hard to reclaim. Their bond deepened, enriched not just by love, but by shared survival, shared recovery, and the quiet triumph of living fully again. But Claire also knew their story wasn't over, at least not in its largest sense. The world was unpredictable, and while one chapter had closed, life had a way of testing even the strongest. There would be challenges ahead, moments that tested their resolve, and perhaps even new threats. But for now, the city's pulse felt steadier, their hearts beat in unison, and their lives, though scarred, were undeniably theirs. And in that clarity, Claire understood the final lesson Jonas had unintentionally taught her. True justice wasn't about destruction. True justice was about reclamation, reclaiming time, reclaiming love, reclaiming the space where fear once ruled. And in doing so, she had built a life worth protecting, a life that could flourish in the aftermath, a life that could shine even when shadows lingered. As the screen fades to black, remember, sometimes the most gripping stories aren't the ones about revenge or punishment. They're about the courage to face the truth, the resilience to rebuild, and the strength to choose love and kindness even when it seems impossible. If you found the story gripping, emotional, or thought-provoking, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to VengeTaleStory for more real, raw, and gripping tales of justice, betrayal, and redemption. Your engagement helps us share these stories and reminds us that even in darkness, the human spirit can prevail.